and the mother comes running out of the house with the baby in their arms and just thrusts their lifeless baby, it's like their blood, thrust them into my arms, their flesh and blood, and says, save my child. And they trust you. In the world of a first responder, the most important thing that you do when you're on the scene of a fire, when you're on the scene of an emergency, is you communicate. And if you don't do that, you die. So when you bring that into the political world, a lot of people just like to hear themselves talk. They don't want to actually communicate any ideas. They don't want to collaborate. But I have really tried very hard to take that mindset of, okay, if we don't communicate and we don't talk to each other, something really bad could possibly happen. You can't see your hand in front of your face. Your senses are dulled because you're wearing a mask. You're hearing the sound of your breathing, knowing that I could potentially be one of the last people to see somebody alive, to see like an old grandma alive. That to me was like, you have to take a step back here and realize that things are going to happen. And
it still hits, I don't miss. I just go, 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 like a go, go flow. And I'm almost done, and I told you so. When I throw these flows like it's Rochambeau, and I ain't too close to the Joe Smoke goes. And I'm on my grind, that is all the time. I do not do breaks, that's right, I stay in dry. And look, I'm back with a little bit of that, and a little more cash than it came in with. Ready, that cat is out that bad, but I still ask you, the boy got skills. I don't need her, I don't need him, I don't need help with me, I got this. I can sing songs, I can spit raps, and I can do both, even do this, word.
This episode is brought to you by Anthracite Pallet Solutions. Need reliable, durable pallets to keep your business moving? At Anthracite Pallet Solutions, we specialize in new and used 48x40 wooden pallets. Whether you're shipping, storing, or stacking, we offer high-quality pallets that keep your operations running smoothly. With our own fleet of trucks and trailers, we deliver on time, every time. And if warehouse space is a concern, our drop trailer services have you covered. From custom orders to large-scale deliveries, we're here to meet your every need with top-notch customer service and unbeatable prices. We're currently shipping within 2 hours of Scranton, Pennsylvania, including Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and Maryland. Call us today at 570-606-9206 or inquire online at anthracitepallet.com and let us handle your pallet solutions. Anthracite Pallet Solutions, built to last. Designed to move. This episode is brought to you by Sweat Tent, the pioneers of the portable wood-burning sauna. Did you know that using the sauna 3 to 4 times per week could reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease by up to 50% and make you 60% less likely to experience Alzheimer's disease? That's why I've been a big fan of the sauna for years. But having to go to a crowded gym to do it isn't ideal. And all the at-home options are bulky and expensive. That's why I only use the Sweat Tent for my sauna needs. It's the most storable and affordable wood-burning sauna on the market. It not only takes minutes to set up, but it can reach 200 degrees Fahrenheit in 30 minutes or less. So whether you're enjoying it yourself in your backyard, with friends, or in need of a reliable sauna on the go, Sweat Tent is your best choice for the most portable, storable, and enjoyable outdoor sauna experience. All On the Stacks listeners will receive $100 off when you use code OTS. Visit sweattent.com today to get $100 off your purchase with code OTS at checkout. Again, that's sweattent.com to get $100 off with code OTS. Sweat Tent, helping you fire up your home wellness routine. This episode is brought to you by FitAF. If you haven't already noticed, I live and breathe entrepreneurship. Whether it's launching new ventures, attending pitch meetings, or mentoring budding entrepreneurs, my schedule is jam-packed. And that's where FitAF steps in. Their menu changes weekly, offering a variety of chef-inspired meals designed by nutrition experts using only the best quality ingredients, keeping me fueled and focused. Their vast selection of meals has you covered for all types of dietary restrictions and diet plans, including keto, paleo, vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, and more. As an On the Stacks listener, enjoy our exclusive offer. Get 20% off your first order of 7 meals or more when you use code OTS at checkout at fitafnutrition.com. Again, that's code OTS for 20% off your first order of 7 meals or more at fitafnutrition.com. Healthy meals and seamless nutrition, keeping entrepreneurs at the top of their game. Well, I gotta say, man, I think you might win the award for the best dressed firefighter. By the way, yeah, I think you do. I think you do.
Like I said before the show, I didn't know if I wanted to dress up in something, have my regular like county, like I'm in a suit, politician uniform on, or if I wanted to have something fire department related. But I figured it would be safer if we're talking politics to just be dressed as so.
Yeah. But And I hope my buddy Jordan Consagra doesn't get offended calling you the best dressed. And and by the way, so I know you guys are obviously two different. You're the city and he's the township, right? Mm-hmm. In Pittston. But is there a rivalry between that, or what about like, you know, I know it's like cliche, but like, is there still like a police like and firefighter rivalry? Is that like not like a thing?
Some people might treat it that way, but I think a lot of us work together, and there's actually quite a few police officers who actually do fire department work. They're firefighters as well. A couple of my colleagues in the fire department actually are police officers as well in their full-time job. That really, to me, is important, because instead of them saying, you know, I just do one job, I just do this job, they understand where both different sets of emergency responders are coming from. And as it relates back to what you said about Jordan Consagra, great guy, by the way.
He is, yeah.
But Pittston Township and Pittston City Fire Department, we actually work hand in hand together. We're, you know, except for our names, we pretty much operate exactly the same types of calls. We're there on each one with each other. We also work heavily with the Jenkins Township Fire Department and the Laughlin Fire Department. So all four of us really are basically like one big department, just with four separate stations. So we do a lot of great work being able to work together. And unfortunately, in this day and age, that's necessary, because manpower is so limited. People can't volunteer so much anymore because they're working, because they can't afford to not work. And the like funding isn't there from the state, from the federal government. It's just not there the way that it needs to be in order to support fire departments in each and every small town. So in a lot of cases, not just fire departments, but police departments and ambulance companies have actually merged and become regionalized units.
Like consolidated.
Yeah, they've consolidated a lot. And actually, I think that's really the future of emergency services. That's really the only way it's going to survive, and the only way it's going to continue to serve the public in a really positive way. It hasn't gotten there quite yet in some of the areas that we're talking about, but we're working on it. I know in the west side, on like Wyoming Area Regional Police Department, just recently formed in the last couple of years. They are, you know, doing a good job. And my ambulance company that I used to work for 10 years, I'm still a volunteer there. I still do occasionally pick up a shift. The Greater Pittston Ambulance, they're a regionalized ambulance company, and they formed essentially out of necessity. There was a time when things were getting difficult financially for ambulance companies that started around 2013 and 14. We could talk about that a little bit if you want. It involved actually the passage of Obamacare.
Is that how you got started, like as a first responder? Was it with the ambulance?
Yeah, actually, so I joined the ambulance in the fall of 2011. One of my relatives had suggested I work there just for some extra cash while I was in college, and I never really had an interest in actually doing that. Now, I have some familial history in the fire service and being a first responder, but I didn't really want to do it as a full-time career. And then when I did start doing it part-time, you know, it took over my life. And after I graduated college, I had a couple of things happen that made my life take a little bit of a different turn. So I started working full-time at the ambulance. I worked there until the end of 2020. I worked full-time there. And by that time, I was pretty burnt out, to be honest with you. COVID really took a huge toll on a lot of us, me in particular. I really just, the way that we were seeing a lot of that death and the patients and how things were going in nursing homes. By the time that I had an opportunity to kind of switch careers and become a full-time firefighter, I was very happy to do it. And it, you know, the work is equally difficult. It's just a different kind of work.
Yeah, that's
definitely an interesting subject, an interesting topic.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I feel like that's one thing that I feel like a lot of people, you know, I'll say it's like, you know, general, you know, public people just may not realize or the effect. And you know, I kind of sort of almost forgot about it myself. Of, you know, I obviously I know during, you know, earlier on in 2020, you know, in the early days of COVID, I remember, you know, there was a lot of support for first responders, which is great, you know, and I loved seeing, you know, everybody supporting, you know, first responders as much as they did, because I mean, literally, you know, I know it's cliche, but you guys were literally on the front lines, right?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, again, I think, you know, sometimes like you guys, you know, don't, and maybe still don't to a degree, like get the credit for what you guys do. And, you know, like I said, like back then, you know, thinking about it now we're you know, years removed from
right.
it, like being able to, you know, you can look back and reflect and And it probably even took some time for you, personally, to even just be able to reflect on like, your thoughts and experiences and, how it affected you, physically, mentally, whatever. And, maybe even at the time you might not even been able to like really fully process it or like kind of explain it. And now obviously years out, you kind of could, and you can kind of reflect back and be like, oh yeah, that's where I was and here I'm at now. And yeah, I think it probably affected a lot of people, not just, first responders, but
Sure.
I think it did, have an effect on I'll say humanity and mental health and physical health more than anyone realizes.
Yeah, one of the things that I know was a big like advertising campaign during COVID, especially in the beginning, was the idea that you were quote unquote safe at home, like hashtag safe at home. That was a big thing that people were saying and like had on social media and things like that. But the reality is there are so many people in this country that are not safe at home. Imagine being, a housewife that deals with the domestic abuse situation, or a child that's food insecure. Those are all things that really, really impacted people in this country, and especially in Luzerne County, which is why, in my position on county council, we've gotten to do a lot of things to really effectuate change there. And it really brought to light for me a lot of the issues that go on here. So COVID, seeing what happened during COVID from the lens of a first responder really translated well when I got onto county council. And yeah, I mean, that really was just a trying time for everybody, not just in the country, but on the planet. Yeah. And I know that there's a lot of people who have, I don't want to say conspiracy theories, but they think about COVID in this light that maybe it wasn't as serious as it was. It certainly was a serious thing. I think that the way that our government responded in some cases wasn't exactly the best. One of the things that really affected me mentally was knowing that I could potentially be one of the last people to see somebody alive, to see like an old grandma alive that was being taken to the hospital, and it wasn't their family. So the grandkids wouldn't get to say goodbye to them in person. They would have to do it via an iPad, via like Zoom or something like that. I mean, that to me was like a really huge degradation of humanity, and taking that away from people, it made me lose a lot of respect for some of the people that were advocating for those types of things. I get that the situation was serious, but as we go back and look at some of the different rates of death and health and what we could have done a little bit better. I know hindsight's 2020, but that was an issue that really like it affected me in a really profound way mentally, having to see that as a first responder. Yeah. I mean, again, for somebody literally on the front lines, I mean, you really obviously have. I think you out of more people, you more than most people have been able to see things in a unique or a different perspective that I'll say most of us can't or didn't, and probably never will, right? And so again, like just talking about the way like things were handled, and like you said, as you said, hindsight's 2020. Again, like some of the things that happened and went on, it's like, oh my god, like I can't even believe, and like, look at it again, like it affects you, and it's something that obviously you're going to carry for the rest of your life. I'm sure at some points things get easier. Yeah, you know what I mean, but yeah, man, it's really crazy. Like think back on that, Yeah. But it also that makes me think too, and like from being again, and I think you said this the other day, as we were talking about you coming on here, and also your perspective. You have this perspective because you're a first responder, but you're also in politics, and I think it's just a unique combination. Not that you're the only one out there that has that combination, right? But I do think it is still a unique combination because sometimes you get the politicians that may have never done anything along the lines of what you've done, and again, they also probably have their own unique good perspectives on things maybe you haven't done, which is all good. Yeah. But I just again, I think you have a lot to bring to the table just because of your experiences and what you've done going from front lines and all that. Because again, like you could literally say like, no, like I literally experienced this myself, and right. It's one thing I think to say, oh yeah, I know somebody that did that, but like you actually did it. So one of the biggest things for me as someone who comes from the first responder world and has now entered the political world is in the world of a first responder, the most important thing that you do when you're on the scene of a fire, when you're on the scene of an emergency is you communicate. You have to communicate with your partner. You have to communicate with the people around you. And if you don't do that, you die. Quite literally, you can die, or the person that you're trying to help can die. So when you bring that into the political world, a lot of people just like to hear themselves talk. They don't want to actually communicate any ideas. They don't want to collaborate. But I have really tried very hard to take that mindset of, okay, if we don't communicate and we don't talk to each other, something really bad could possibly happen. We experience that almost every day. And there are so many people, unfortunately, in the political world, and especially in local municipal politics, that really just want it their way. They have their own little fiefdom, and they don't care what anybody else thinks. Even if they think they have a better idea, they just want to do whatever they want to do, and that's it. But I really have tried to include people. One of the things I talked about when I ran for county council in 2021 was collaborating with all 76 of our municipalities in the county so that we can all get projects done together, because the county has a lot of resources that we can obviously offer them. And we have a lot of infrastructure that's in some of those municipalities. We have 120 miles of roads, and we have 308 bridges. I know that sounds like a lot, because it is. And there's a story behind that. But we have a lot of infrastructure and a lot of things that we can offer, and a lot of ways that we can affect all these different municipal entities. So I've been trying really hard, and I've been lucky that I came in at a time when we were actually able to financially support a lot of their projects through the use of American Rescue Plan funds, which that was basically the bill that was passed during COVID to help alleviate the economic distress that was caused by the pandemic. We had an opportunity to divvy out those funds to different municipal entities, local nonprofit organizations, small businesses, and different organizations like that. We used about half of it for internal county projects, which was very helpful too, helpful to keep the burden from our taxpayers. But in all of that, there was a lot of collaboration that was needed. There was a lot of meetings, a lot of communication. And like I said, I really think that having been a first responder, continuing to be a first responder in my full-time job, it really is helpful that I can take that perspective with me as I go into the political world.
Yeah, and I think also too, I mean, I'll just say that like the crisis management, and again, when it comes to communications, I mean, obviously, as you said, crisis and communications, it all goes hand in hand, and just anything, getting things done, but being able to think and act on your feet, especially literally when something's burning down, like literally,
right?
That's a skill, and then it's it's something that you don't just pick up tomorrow. And by the way, I'm just curious, what really prompted you to get into politics? Because by the way, as we all know, and I'm just going to say the awkwardness, that anyone might be feeling right now, again, because politics, it's a sensitive subject sometimes, and you threw yourself into this, and this area has been, I'll say, known, like Luzerne County, as we all know, and now I'm not going to go into any specific story, right? But Luzerne County has been known for just lots of nonsense and all kinds of just bullshit, right?
Yep.
And it's and you put you willingly, which I give you a lot of credit for, man, and anyone else is similarly in your position, who genuinely cares, but you throw yourself out there, man, to the wolves, and sometimes they just eat you up, So I'm just curious, what really prompted you to say, hey, I want to do this.
So throwing yourself out there to the wolves is definitely a good description of what it is sometimes. I really do feel like I'm out there against the wolves. And sometimes it's even the people that I agree with, even the people that I consider my allies, I find myself on the other sides of issues of them. And that's okay. This is going to pretty much come canned right out of a campaign speech from when I was running in 2021. But the reason why I really wanted to get involved locally in politics, and why I saw county council as an opportunity for me to do something impactful outside of my job as a first responder, is because for a long time, I noticed that many of my friends, many of my classmates from high school and college, and other people my age, were leaving Luzerne County. They were leaving Northeast Pennsylvania, and they were going to the big cities like New York City, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Chicago, any big city, you name it, they were going there. And it wasn't just that they were leaving Northeast Pennsylvania. They were taking with them this extremely negative viewpoint of the people, of the fact that they said there was nothing to do here. And to me, I said, I can't do that. I love this area. My family has built its legacy here, and I want to be the next generation of that. And I really just want to have an opportunity to make a difference here and try to get some of those people to come back, quite honestly, because, to me, it was personally offensive to see them leaving. And again, you can leave, go to greener pastures. That's great. But if you're taking with you this really negative viewpoint of your hometown, of where you grew up, and where you were, the person you are was created, I think there's something wrong, and I'm not sure if it's something wrong with the area, if it's something wrong with the people that are leaving. But I really just wanted to make an impact, and I think over the last few years, myself and a couple of other really, really dedicated people have done that. I know you had my Uncle Mike, the mayor of Pittston, on the show.
Yeah, that's right. I got all the Lombardos on here,
right?
You know?
Well, you had him on the show before, and he's somebody that has been a trailblazer, and I'm not just saying this because he's my relative, but he has really been a trailblazer for revitalization.
Yeah, I think everybody can recognize that, whether you like him or not.
Right, yeah. I don't know many people that don't like him. I'm sure there are some people on social media I've seen. He likes to argue with them, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I try to avoid the social media arguments. I think that's because when I was in school, I used to be really bad on social media about arguing with people. I used to do it all the time.
You just wouldn't let it go.
I would live for that. Like if somebody wrote something nasty on something I wrote, or if I saw something that
put the gloves on, baby.
I was ready to fight. I was ready to fight all the time. Now I'm not so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's done such an amazing job for the city of Pittston, to the point where it's gotten recognized statewide and nationwide for the revitalization efforts. And I have said that I wish that every town in Luzerne County could have like a Mike Lombardo, could have people in that town that care about it so much that they just want to get good things done. And I think every town in Luzerne County and Northeast Pennsylvania can have that opportunity. I think they just need to sit down and kind of figure out what their destiny is, what their plan is moving forward.
Definitely. And I mean, I stole this, I think, right off your Facebook page, but I think you have a quote on your Facebook page, and it says, there's a phrase that says, I mean, it might be a quote, but blindly throw your faith to the face of the next good thing to come your way.
Right. That's actually paraphrase of a lyric from a Dave Matthews song.
Yeah. Well, I dug deeper to see, because like I don't want to.
You know what song
it is. I was gonna say I think it's it was a quote from a Dave Matthews. I don't know what song. I'm sure obviously you could touch on it, but I'll just my own interpretation. Obviously, looking at it, but it goes with like with exactly what you just said, which is why I'm bringing it up, because. When you look at it, you have this, this the perspective that you have, public service, first responder, and everything. But I think, in general, I think, the phrase, it encourages a proactive and an optimistic approach to life. Exactly. And not having that, negative, connotation to whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's this area or not, but just life in general. And it seems that, I don't know if that's just kind of something you live by. I'm sure, obviously, I'm sure you're a Dave fan, obviously.
Yeah, I do like Dave.
But I like it though, because again, I subscribe to this, to that same, that same idea. And, I just think it goes with, everything you just said. So I figured it would be appropriate to mention.
Yeah. Well, part of that has to do with the fact that I'll tell you, in the past, I've always felt that I wanted to have my life planned out. I wanted to know, okay, like by the age of 30, I wanted to be doing this. By age 35, I wanted to be married and have 2 kids and have that. Well, after I graduated from college, Penn State, by the way.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We are.
I knew I liked you more than Penn State. I knew there was a reason. I knew there was other reasons why I had you on.
You just had Janelle Rushton on.
That's right.
And she talked about the Penn State ID.
Oh, wait, did you bring yours?
I did.
I
dude, find it.
All right, that's it. Show's over. Show's over. I'm not. Yeah,
it's funny.
Nobody's voting for you.
I actually did look for it a little bit before I left, but I know where it is. It's got to be down in my basement somewhere in a bunch of boxes. But I do still.
I will report back. Okay.
Definitely.
That's the only thing I ask from you after this.
Excellent. So after I had graduated college, I had a couple of things happen, like life events, that really changed the trajectory of where I was going. I actually, not many people know this, but I actually went to law school for a year. I wanted to be an attorney, and I dropped out after a year. I just was having some issues personally that were just taking my focus away from doing the work. So that was when I ended up working full-time at the ambulance, and I decided, just work there for a few years, see what happens. I tried a couple other things, like, I tried doing some nursing classes. I knew I wanted to be like in the public service field.
You just didn't really know exactly what.
Yeah, because I figured that becoming an attorney and working my way up the ladder that way would be a good way for me to get into the political field. I can get my name out there in other ways. I could be helping people. I could be doing it in a little bit more of a nuanced way than in the direct way that you do it as a first responder. But again, life just kind of kept taking the turns that it did, and I was disappointed with it at some level. But then I said to myself, you know what, John, you have to take a step back here and realize that things are going to happen, and if it's meant to be, it'll be. So don't take it so seriously. Don't be so rigid with your timeline, with your expectations. Because if you do that, all you're going to end up is being disappointed in life. And I didn't want to be disappointed anymore. I didn't want to feel like I was failing at something that I really wanted. So I said, let me just do this and find a natural path in the direction that I want to go. And I think that really leaning into that world as a first responder and not just doing it as a way to make money has helped me, because it's taught me a lot of lessons. It's taught me about working with people that maybe you don't necessarily love to deal with every day. And, it also taught me to be cool and calm under pressure. So, I think that doing that has really been a positive impact on me. And going back to what that saying, blindly throw your faith to the face of the next good thing to come your way, is it just was my way of saying, you know what, this is what I'm going to do anymore. I'm just going to let life take me where it wants to go. And as long as it's kind of in the realm of what I want to do.
Yeah, you don't want to go off the rails.
Don't want to go off the rails. But as long as it's somewhere in the same neighborhood, I think I'll be okay. And that's why I enjoy doing what I do on county council. And I obviously enjoy being a first responder. And I'm just waiting to see what the next step is, where the next place is that I'm going to go. But I assume and I hope that it's somewhere in this same world of public service, because to me it's so important. It's like ingrained in my being, and like I said, I mentioned that very briefly before, that my family has this real legacy of public service and leadership. And me, as the namesake of my Uncle John, who passed away in 1993, fighting a fire in Pittston City as a volunteer, he really, kind of, I don't want to say he chose my destiny, but it was certainly his destiny that night. And actually, just a few days ago was the anniversary, the 32nd anniversary of when he and fellow firefighter Lenny and Sulaco from West Pittston passed away. And really, I think it was certainly his destiny to do that. And it set my family on a path that has really certainly changed our, where the direction we've gone. And I think it has positively changed some other people's lives too. Like I said, in the city of Pittston, definitely. I think that, my Uncle Mike wouldn't have had so much drive to do it if he didn't have the inspiration from his brother. And I don't know that I would have had the drive to do what I do if it wasn't for the inspiration of my uncle.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how that works out sometimes, isn't it? Like, and unfortunately, sometimes it, I don't want to say like it takes a tragedy to like kind of, ignite, no pun intended, but to ignite, that fire within you to want to, say, hey, you know what, I want to make a difference, and this is how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to follow in, whether it's the same path or not, but either way, like it just sometimes those I'll say like the adversities. It's the adversities in life, and we've all been through them. You've been through them. I've been through them. All of us, and some people we may still be going through them. But I think it's important to just take a step back and really. As hard as it is in the moment, because it's real difficult, right? And I know anybody could relate to this. In those moments of adversity, it's really difficult to really see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? But I think, when you could just, obviously surround yourself with the people that you want to surround yourself with that are going to be able to, help you get through whatever it is you're going through personally, professionally. But realize that, I think you kind of touched on a little before too, like kind of like everything happens for a reason. I'm a huge believer in that. Yep. And which is also why I think I like that quote. I'm not a huge Dave fan, to be completely honest. So when I saw it, I didn't know what it was from. And I Googled it because I'm a weirdo.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I did. I Googled it. But again, I think it's just one of those things that, when you face adversity, no matter what it is, and you find a way to come out through it, and you always come out better.
Yep.
And I know that's very hard. And for anyone that's listening that may be, going through something, I know you're probably thinking like, oh yeah, it's easier said than done. And I understand that. It is easier said than done. But again, kind of back to your that quote, and it's just, you keep the faith and you just put yourself out there and you get through it. You will get through it. And I think on the other side of it, you'll be able to reflect back. And I mean, you're a perfect example of that, I think too. And again, just those stories. I mean, I did know those stories, but thanks for sharing them again, because I think it's real important. To pay some respect to the people that came before you. Because you're really following in their footsteps, and it is their legacy, and that's something that no one takes lightly. But there's always good that comes out of the bad. And I don't know if you know, it's funny, I never actually, everybody always asks, Bill, like, what podcast do you listen to? Like, which one's your favorite? And to be honest, I really don't, like, I don't religiously listen to, like, really anything. I bounce around, catch some here and there. But do you know Jocko? I think it's Jocko Willink. You probably know him as the bald guy. He was a former, I don't know, some badass. Forgive me to anyone that's a huge fan of his. He was either like a Navy SEAL or something, but he was a badass dude. He has this thing where he says good all the time. Like, man, I'm trying to do his voice. Good. Oh, man, that was horrible. I'm just gonna have to cut that out because that was so bad. but he does. He has this saying, like, and it's usually when something's going wrong, and that's his thing. It's like, oh, you screwed up that over there. Good.
I actually have seen his videos before. Okay, now that you've
see,
yeah.
See, and again, you may not even realize again who he is or what he does. It doesn't even matter, right? But the point is again, it kind of brought you back to like, oh yeah, I think I may have seen that or heard that, and because he does, he has a very very popular podcast. Honestly, I should know the name of it, but I don't. It might just be called, I don't know. If you just look up Jocko, Jocko, you'll definitely find him. He's got a very popular show. But again, like his, that's his mindset is like, hey, that's going wrong. Good.
Right.
Get back to work. Yep. Because something good, and the reason he says good is because he knows that, even though you're saying like, hey man, like this bad thing happened, like I'm screwed. No, good that happens because you're going to learn from it and you're going to come out on the other side better for it. And I think it's important. It's important to have that mindset. And if you don't, I don't know, man. I think you're just you could go down a really shitty path.
Yeah. So I think of adversity the same way I think of when we fight a fire. Just to kind of bring it back around to my full-time job. So, when you're going in, you may not necessarily know where the fire is. There might be a lot of smoke. You can't see your hand in front of your face. Your senses are dulled because you're wearing a mask. You're hearing the sound of your breathing. You sound like Darth Vader. So that's
good? Yeah.
That's exactly what it sounds like. So, you're trying to feel your way through the house or wherever you are, and you can't see anything right until pretty much you're on top of it. And then once you put the fire out, you open some windows or you break some windows, all of a sudden everything just lifts and you say, okay, we got it done. It's honestly a moment, even if it's just something, very small, to the biggest fires, just when that moment hits, it's like, oh, thank God this is over. Thank God we're back to like, we can see what's going on. We can mop up the rest of the job, but we got the main thing done. We always say, put the wet stuff on the red stuff.
Nice,
and but I think of adversity the same way, because when you're like it's always darkest before the dawn type mentality. It's when you're trying to find that, it could be very dark. It could be very scary.
Very hard.
Where you're supposed to be going, especially if you're not familiar. I mean, I don't know what every house looks like on the inside. Sure. I don't know what every building
how would
looks
you?
like.
Yeah.
Exactly. No way.
Even if you had the blueprint,
exactly.
it's just you're not. The building's burning down.
So that makes that to me is I think of adversity in the exact same way. Is that okay? You just got to get through this, and once you get to this point, you'll be in a better spot and you'll be able to figure it out. And that's what I really truly the last probably 5 years or so, I've really lived my life like that, because I was, like I said, I was just sick and tired of feeling down and feeling like I had failed in some of the things I wanted to do. And like I said,
or just accepting other people's mentalities or their perspective of like how you should live your life, or like you should do this or you should that, or you hear all the time like people say, I'm sure you've gotten it too, like, dude, like why are you even still here? Like you should like move and go somewhere else and do XYZ somewhere else. Like you'd be so much better off. Like, yeah, I'm sure you hear it all the time. I mean, I still do too, even to this day. And it does aggravate me. I will say, like, same thing. I'm born and raised here in northeastern Pennsylvania. Obviously, I love the area. Does it have its quirks? 100%. I'm not going to sit here and say that everything is perfect. It's not.
I won't lie to you and say everything's perfect.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's what you make of it, and it's what you call home. And if you want to make your home better, well, then you're going to do it. You're going to figure it out. You're going to figure out a way. And, if it means, in your case, throwing yourself to the wolves, literally as a, throwing yourself into politics, which I have another question about that in a second. But yeah, it's really up to you. And, I think a lot of people don't realize, that just by, and it doesn't, you don't have to, go, 100% and really put yourself out there and do the things maybe that you're doing. But there's other things that people could do to, that, anyone can do, to make a difference. And I think people don't realize the small things that, could actually make a significant impact, and it's just a matter of how about you just stop with the negative comments first.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like just stop that. That's a great start.
The negativity that you see, especially from people that either they don't live in this area anymore, and all they do is they comment on social media. It's like, okay, you live in Florida now. Like, why the hell are you still bothering?
Move on. Then,
if you don't live here,
right?
If you don't have any reason to be here, then why do you care about what's going on here? Just go away. Let us.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
I thought you moved away for a reason.
Exactly.
Like, why are you putting yourself back in this situation? But kind of along those lines, I'm curious too, like how was being in politics, like is it or was it everything you thought it would be?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I've had a lot of involvement in politics, political campaigns since since I've been maybe 15 years old. I really have taken a huge interest in that and helping out political candidates of my choice. I mean, I'm a Republican, but I support mostly Republican candidates. But when it gets down to the local municipal level, the important thing is there's no Democrat or Republican way to pick up the garbage every day. There's no Democrat Republican way to fill a pothole on a street. So you're basically just doing what the right thing is for the people that you serve. So there are a lot of people, I think, who maybe knew me in high school and college that really thought of me as this really super conservative person that was really just like, rah, rah, Ronald Reagan, this, that. And I still am that super conservative person, and I still love Ronald Reagan. But when it comes to actually getting things done, you might see me at odds with my own people every once in a while. And it's not because we have a different opinion when it comes to like our national identity as a Republicans. It's because there might be more than one way to solve an issue. Again, my biggest goal is always to collaborate and to listen to everybody. And one of the difficult things that I've had to deal with now is, and again, this was my choice, but I'm currently the chair of county council. So I'm not just a council member who just votes.
Yeah, by the way, what does that mean? So again, like I'll be completely honest, and I know you know this, like I'm not going to sit here and claim to know everything about, the way politics works and county council and all that. So, but yeah, I would love for you to kind of just explain that, a little bit. I'll say for the average person that might be listening that, whether they support you or not, I just want people to be able to understand like what that means, what comes along with that, and like what, your responsibility, we'll say, is.
So just very briefly, I have to kind of take a step back to get to what I'm doing.
Yeah, see, I'm already jumping ahead.
That's fine.
Look at me.
No, that's fine. So
you should be running this over here.
So our form of government in Luzerne County is called a home rule form of government. And you touched on it before about some of the wackiness that has gone on in county politics. And, of course, in 2008, we had the Luzerne County corruption scandal, which saw 2 of our county judges get arrested for taking kickbacks and doing just horrible things. And it involved children, too, which was very bad. And there were other elected officials and political officials that were arrested for all sorts of different chicanery that was going on. That was basically taking advantage of the trust of the taxpayers and the voters. So what happened was the voters got together and they said, we want to change our government. And there is a law in Pennsylvania that allows you to do that. So we decided to form a government study commission. We actually have one right now, which is a little bit different. It's just kind of tweaking the charter that we have. I can talk about that later. But we're so they formed this government study commission and decided that we wanted to form a home rule style government, which essentially just gives the voters a little bit more say in exactly how their government is shaped. So it changed from having 3 commissioners, which were basically the 3 people that made every decision in the county, financially, hiring, all this other stuff, to having 3 separate branches of government. You have the executive branch, which is run by essentially who would be the president of the United States, but is run by our county manager, Romilda Crocomo. Fantastic person. I've supported her every step of the way, and she's done an amazing job for Luzerne County. But she's not elected. She's appointed by county council. County council is the second branch of government. They're the legislative body, so they'd be like the United States Congress or your state house. We control the purse strings of the county, so we control the financials. The taxpayer money. Our county budget every year is about $170 million in our general fund. And then the court system is like the third branch of government, but we don't really bother with them. They're kind of separate. They don't really impact 90% of what we do. So county council is made up of 11 members, and I was elected in 2021. And there was a huge political shift that year. In 2021, it was the year after President Trump lost. In 2020, the Republican Party had been making gains in Luzerne County for many, many years, for probably about 8 or 10 years before that. And I had been involved in all that, actually, since, like I said, I was about 15. And so I had slowly seen as Republicans were getting elected, and I always said that the reason why this was happening was because so many of the people that were arrested in 2008 and 2009, they were all Democrats. And I don't mean to say that Democrats are bad or anything like that, but the Republicans were saying, hey, listen, you got to give us a chance to lead here too. So Republicans started getting elected. We had some great people. Stephanie Salavantis, who's currently a judge, she was elected district attorney in 2011. Then we had like Aaron Coffer, who was elected state rep in 2014. And that led to a series of other people getting elected that ended up doing a fantastic job at what they were, at whatever their job was. So Stephanie did an amazing job as the district attorney. Aaron Coffer was the amount of funding that he brought into this area and the amount of good that he did is totally unmatched, at least in recent memory. And then the numbers started to shift where people were starting to become more Republican. And actually, there's a book about this by Ben Bradley, I think his name is. It's called The Forgotten. And it's about why the voters in Luzerne County overwhelmingly voted for Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012. And then in 2016, there was this major political shift where they voted for Donald Trump. And it's really interesting to see why. And I mean, part of the reason is because of the way that the Democratic Party nationally has allowed their platform to sort of split off from what the values of Northeastern Pennsylvania is, which is basically just being hard workers, union members that go to church on Sundays, they own guns, and people felt alienated. They felt very forgotten, quote unquote. And, somebody like Donald Trump comes along and he's very brash with the way he discusses things and talks, but he talks like a normal person. And people really like it.
Relatable.
Yeah, it's very relatable. People really like that. So love him or hate him, he was this like magnetic personality. And that's why, so this political shift started to happen in Luzerne County especially. And getting back to my election, which that was a very roundabout way of saying, in 2021, every single countywide seat was won by Republicans. That was the first time that had ever happened. So all 5 county council seats were won by Republicans, myself and 4 of my colleagues. The district attorney seat was won by our current DA, Sam Sanguadolci. We had our controller seat was won by Walter Griffith, and then 2 of our judge seats, which Stephanie Salavantis was one of them, and former state rep Tara Toohill, who is now a county judge, won those 2 seats. It was a huge shift politically. So after that, I get on council. Republicans have a supermajority. It was a 9-2 supermajority, and actually one of the Democrats ended up switching parties in the midst of all this, and it became a 10-1 supermajority. Now people might say, "Oh wow, that you guys must have got a lot of stuff done." It wasn't exactly how it happened. There was a lot of just as much arguing amongst 10 Republicans and 1 Democrat as there would be if it was a 5-6 split or something.
Or some other makeup.
Yeah, because again, going back to what I said, it really doesn't have to do with what your national political identity is.
Right, there's still a lot of local
different things that were going on in the county at the time. And so our county council, like I said, is the legislative body. And after 2 years of being on council, I was elected by my peers to be the vice chair of council for the first 2 years. This past 2 years, I was elected to be the chair of council. So one of the issues that I have is that I really, again, going back to that collaboration and communication, I don't want anyone on council or in the administration to feel stifled by me. I don't want to use my authority as the chair of council to say, no, you can't say this. I don't want to hear what you have to say. I don't, want your stupid thing that you like to be on our agenda because I don't want people talking about it.
Sure.
It's the opposite. I want to be fair to everybody. So sometimes I get in trouble with my own people in my own party because they think that I'm supporting something that maybe one of the Democrats introduces or a Republican that they don't like introduces. And I'm saying,
you're just giving a fair opportunity.
I'm just giving everybody a fair opportunity to have their their opinion heard, number one. And if
that's the right answer. It's common sense to me.
Exactly. But you know what? People don't look at some of these things politically as common sense. If they have an opinion about something, they really just want it to be their opinion, and that's it.
And you can't change their mind. There's nothing you can say to it. Isn't that crazy sometimes?
And I had told you something earlier before we got on here about a little issue that we had today at the county, and it was related to that. It was this group of people has a desire for something to happen in their town, and it's like you cannot get them to the table to change their mind. Despite the fact that we are desperately trying to come up with a compromise and say, here, we'll help you do this, we'll help you apply for this grant or that, and sometimes they just want it to be their way or the highway, and that's just not how it can work if you actually want to get things done and you want to have progress in whatever thing it is that you're doing.
Yeah, no, it's 100%. And, again, like as somebody, obviously I'll say I'm an outsider to, all this and what you and everyone around you does. But yeah, man, I do, I see that just from, I'll say general public standpoint where, it seems, and not just locally. I'm not bashing anyone locally. This is just a general statement, but again, you see it everywhere. You see it everywhere, and it's like why can't people just have a good normal conversation anymore?
Right.
Like it's just be human. Just have the conversation, and nobody's perfect. There probably never can be or will be like a 100% perfect answer, but you find a way. You find a way to get a middle ground, something that maybe you win a little bit, they win a little bit, and but again, at the end of the day, it's also people that vote for what they vote for, and that's really what it comes down to too. And it's like, okay, well, hey, this is what people voted for. Well, then this is what you're going to get.
Our politics have become so electrified over the last 8 to 10 years, and it has gone actually before that too.
Yeah.
But our politics have become so electrified that a lot of people just tune them out. And that's really sad, because people should participate in the political process. No matter what your affiliation is, no matter what your viewpoint is, you should have a voice in the political process. And obviously, I'm very happy as a Republican that the Republicans have gotten a majority of voters here in Luzerne County now over the last year. And actually, in the state, I just read today that we're within 50,000 votes of actually flipping the state. And that's just because, like I alluded to before, I think that that people are starting to really miss the point of who they should be talking to. The Democratic Party, nationally at least, has really been missing the point. They used to be the party of the union people, of the workers, and now they've really leaned into and delved into these social issues that people just don't like. And regardless of what your opinion is on it, I mean, it's just, if that's the forefront of your political ideology, I don't really know that that's going to be the most successful thing, because people vote with their wallets. People don't vote, based on, some of their other ideological things. It's number one, you're going to vote with your wallet. If you can't put food on the table for your kids, you're going to feel that every day. You're going to feel that more than you're going to feel some other things. So that's something that I think, both parties really need to be cognizant of, and especially now. It is getting harder every day. I mean, it doesn't matter who the president is. It doesn't matter who, is in Congress, who's in control of anything. It's just, it is getting more difficult to live. And I really hope that over the next couple of years, we can kind of reverse some of these negative trends. But, when the price of eggs is like $7, $8 for a dozen, that's crazy. When the price of gas is $4 a gallon, I mean, you don't have that problem, obviously, but when the price of gas is $4 a gallon, that's a little difficult. Like I drive a truck, so I just said to my girlfriend the other day that it only costs like $59 to fill up my truck the other day, and I thought, oh my God, this is great. It's less than $80 to fill up. I was like,
you probably didn't really even go that far for that price
exactly,
too, either.
Really.
That's the thing.
But there are so many people that really are hurting, and that's one of the things that I've learned being an elected official on the county level. Like I didn't know that 1 in 5 children are food insecure in Luzerne County. I didn't know that there are so many people that are, just moments away from losing their house because they can't pay their mortgage. And that affects everything that you do and all of the things that you want to do in the county. So for example, if you are faced with the decision to have to potentially raise taxes, you feel that. You certainly feel that when you're thinking about it, because that maybe an extra $5 or $10, that might be the breaking point for somebody. At the same time, you have to realize that, especially in the county level, like I think we've done a really good job of trying to cut the fat, not really, add to the budget in unnecessary ways. So we are really operating in as lean a way as we possibly can. And I'm really proud of that, because over the last 4 years, I've certainly been a small piece of that, working on our budgets, making sure we're trimming them down. But we also every year have to pay off debt that was left to us by the commissioners. We had $500 million in debt that we.
I was just going to ask you. Yeah, I that was kind of, as you were saying this stuff, it got me thinking a little. I was going to say, like, where was it, kind of when you came in, and where is it now? Yeah. And like, and I know it's kind of like a long-winded, we're kind of bouncing around, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But like, obviously it kind of also touches on like what challenges are you still facing, but I mean, there was a huge deficit, right? And that's so something that you guys have been able to kind of chip away at.
When Home Rule started, we had about a $455 million debt.
So a couple $2-3, as they would say in NAPA, right?
It was a lot. It was a real lot. So every year, a certain percentage of our budget has to go to the debt service. And right now it's about $26 million. So that's $26 million right off the top of that $165, $170 million that I talked about earlier that we can't use for roads. We can't use that for bridges. We can't use that to buy new election equipment. We can't use that to buy, new vehicles for our sheriff's department or guns or whatever they need. We can't use that to give to our human services departments so that they can help our senior centers or things like that. We have to use that just for debt. Now, the good thing is we have only about $120 million left in debt. So we'll be out of debt in 2030 if we just keep paying. We just can't take on any new debt, which we haven't done. And we're actually mandated by the Home Rule Charter to make paying down our debt a priority. So we've been doing that. We've been doing a fantastic job. That's something I absolutely commend every single member of previous county councils, including this one. And
that's a lot of money. It's a lot. That's a lot of money.
A lot of money. It really is. And you know what? I couldn't even tell you what they spent that money on previously because it certainly doesn't show in some of these areas. Like our roads are in, some of our roads were in such bad shape when I first got on council, our bridges, and there really was not a great plan in place to fund them and to help fix them and repair them. But now over the last 4 years, we've really gotten a handle on that, thankfully. So we are repairing a lot of the roads and bridges, and we really shouldn't be in that business as the county, but we are, and there's reasons for that. But once we're out of that debt, we're going to have money to be able to do some really great things for people. One of the things that I have been talking about recently is bringing back the homestead exemption, which takes off a certain percentage of taxes that you owe every year to the municipality or to the county. So it'll lower a tax bill by like $100 or $200, but that $100 or $200 could mean a lot to somebody.
100%.
So when that debt is finally paid off, or when we get close to it, we can finally start like talking about that stuff, because it's just it really is tough out there. And I know, like, as a taxpayer myself, as somebody who purchased a house in 2020, I know that it's not easy when you have to write that bill out, or when you see that bill. The problem, though, is, I'll tell you, the county taxes and local municipal taxes are really not the ones that kill people. It's the school district taxes. My county taxes and my local city taxes in Pittston, if you combine those, they're less than half of what my school district tax bill is. And I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong that the school district has that much money that they receive, but really on the state level, there needs to be a new formula for how property taxes are collected. I really would love to see them eliminate them, which I know a lot of people would love, and it's transition us over to something different, like a statewide sales tax.
Yeah, what do you think that would do? What do you think that would do if it were to be eliminated? It
would give a lot more money to every municipality, to every school district. It would do a ton more, and then people would only be paying it based on consumption. They wouldn't be and this tax wouldn't apply to. It wouldn't apply to like necessities, not like food or things like that. It would only apply to like more luxury items, certainly not like anything that's a necessity. So it would, I think there's a bill in the Pennsylvania State House right now that's it's probably stuck somewhere. It's not going to go anywhere, I'm sure, but there is a bill in the Pennsylvania State House that has that implication. They want to change it over to a statewide sales tax. And I think that would be awesome, because it would alleviate us of such a huge problem. And it would give a lot more funding to the municipalities and to the counties and the school districts, and it would take a lot of the burden off of taxpayers, especially like senior citizens. Senior citizens aren't using the school district. I mean, they don't have kids. They don't have kids that are in the school anymore, so they're still paying a $2,000 tax bill every year, even though they own their house outright, for a commodity that they don't use. Now in the county, senior citizens are going to use several of the services. They might use our area agency on aging. They might use, they should use our election system. They might use like our transportation authority. That's not necessarily part of the county, but part of the infrastructure. They might use our county roads. They might use some of our other county services. So those are things that do go further in life than just part of it. So that's why people really get upset and agitated when it comes to property taxes. But in the county, it's like we're providing a lot of really important services to people. So, we're really trying to stretch every dollar that we make. We've been doing a really good job of that lately. I'm very proud of our administrative staff. They've been coming up with a lot of creative ideas on how to, gain interest on our funds and things like that. It's been really, really positive. So, we have a really good set of people that are trying to move the county forward right now in a positive direction, especially as it relates to our like funding situation. So, I'm looking forward to this next 4 years, hopefully, and the ability to finally get that debt paid off and start really doing some good things with that money.
Definitely. Well, I mean, it sounds like we're at least on the right path.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And as I said before, light at the end of the tunnel.
Yep.
So. I'm curious on your thoughts on, obviously now this is on a national level, but obviously this past presidential election with, obviously as a podcaster, this to me is obviously I enjoy having this conversation, just in I'll say the new media and podcasting world, but I just thought it was really cool to see, again, whether you like him or not, it doesn't matter to me. But to see somebody like Trump go on somebody like Rogan's podcast. I know he did other ones too, by the way. Like I think Trump did like several podcasts. And again, I think it's great because I don't know, you tell me, but kind of going along with this. But when was the last time like you actually sat down with somebody like me or not, right?
Right.
That you've been able to like just have a conversation like this with like a regular person, just talking about stuff that's going on and actually at length. Yeah. Because it's one thing to, get quoted in the newspaper or a 10-second soundbite from you on TV from a reporter. Like, I hate to say it, but like that just does not give you context to really what's going on.
Yep.
And I think it's so important, to be able to, on both sides. And by the way, let me just say this too. I don't want anyone to think, obviously, everybody knows you're a Republican, right?
Yeah.
I want everyone to know, like, if there's a Democrat out there that, or whatever, I know there's, right? And they want to come on here too. Like, I'm not against that. Like, I don't want anyone to think I'm trying to favor one side or the other. Because I think, as you said before, it's important, to be able to, hear all the voices and give everybody a fair chance, right? But I just think it's so important, for elected officials to put themselves out there like this. Yeah. And, thank you for coming on. Number one, I'm not ending the show, by the way, by thanking you. But,
absolutely. Happy to do it.
Yeah. But I think it's important, obviously. But back to my original, when I started saying about Trump on Rogan, I think everybody would agree. I would think, it seems, pretty obvious. Yeah. Like that had a significant impact on the election. And in my opinion, I'll just give my opinion, obviously I'm sure you might have a similar one or different, and I'd love to hear it. But, again, I think it really opened people's eyes because, again, getting a couple second blip on TV or a print headline, it's a lot of it is just like clickbait, could be out of context, but it might not be though too. But it's just not enough. Like it's just not enough to really understand like what's going on in the world. Again, whether it's a local or national thing, and to be able to sit down in a long form conversation like this. You could actually like talk about a lot and like actually like learn and understand. Like there's a million things you've said already today that I'm like, it just opened my eyes to so much more already, which is great. And it's what people need. I'm not saying you have to love politics. I'm not saying you have to get involved or anything, but at least like try to like, again, for me, like as I said before, like I don't know like everything. I don't know a lot of the jargon and all that, but it's great for you to be able to like sit down and just, with somebody like you and have a conversation and just dumb it down to a level that anyone can understand. And I hope that anyone's listening or watching, whether Democrat, Republican, or other, that they just give anyone the time of day to just like hear it out and just listen and learn. Because again, the media is what the media is. I'll say traditional media. Yeah. But then there's new media, and I think it now. I think what we saw with this last election, the presidential election, is it has significantly impacted, number one, the outcome of the election, but just how we're consuming content. And taking that and then taking that content and then making decisions based on it, right? So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts around that because, like I said, there's probably not many other. I know there's other podcasts around this area, but there's not a political podcast, right? At least not that I'm aware of, right? And there's probably not many podcasts that really have many politicians on. And to be honest, I think you might only be the second one.
Yeah.
And with besides your uncle, by the way, right? So again, it's not like I have politicians on a lot, but as I said before, I would welcome the opportunity. I'm not obviously I can't take everybody and have 10 people on, but I'm an open book. So
there's a lot of really good political leaders out here locally that I think would be really great guests on a podcast. They have a great, fantastic stories to tell, but as it relates back to the media aspect of it, I think that legacy media has certainly found itself in a spot where they've lost their way, where they don't really know what the future is, what the next steps are, because too many people have gotten to the point where, because everything is so canned, everything is so like rehearsed, it almost feels like, and truthfully, that is the way it is. I mean, that is what I like. One of the first things somebody told me after I got elected to council was, if the newspaper calls you and you don't have an answer and you don't want to speak on something, you might want to think about what you're going to say, because they might just print it. So you have to kind of think about, and I'm like,
oh, that sucks.
I'm like, okay, I'll listen to that, but I don't really know if I want to do that. Now, over the last couple of years, I've gained a little bit of tact, the way that you can discuss things with people, and especially now having a lot more knowledge of the issues is really helpful. So I can have a conversation more off the cuff about something. That's why I was like happy to do this. This is great. I really enjoy like the long form conversation. You get a lot more accomplished by doing that. Yeah. And people don't, again,
and they get to know you, by the way.
Yeah. And they don't think, like, I hope people don't think of me like I said, like people that I graduated high school with and college with, they think of me probably a different way than what.
Yeah, they think of you as the high school.
Exactly. As that asshole that literally just wouldn't stop talking about politics in high school. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, but this is kind of my life now. So, but it's only one part of it. Like I have other way more interest.
Yeah, there's more to John than that.
Exactly. But so this new media that's come in here, and podcasting has been around for a while, but I know before the show I was asking you about like your video component to the podcast. I think that provides a little bit of an advantage too to some people. But when you have guests on like a President Trump, like Rogan had on, I mean, that was just, what was it, like 2-3 hours?
Yeah, I think it was 3.
I never even
listened
at least
to the whole
thing. I listened to probably half of it. I go running just about every day, and I listen to your podcast quite often.
Yeah, thank you. You do. I know you do, because I pay. By the way, I pay attention to the comments and the in the private DMs that I get, and you over time. And by the way, like you haven't just again, so because a lot of people are probably gonna see this, be like, oh, like he's just favoriting whatever. It's like, by the way, you and I have never really had many lengthy conversations. Number one to begin with, and
we only met one time before.
That's right,
which was interesting because it was at a political event.
Yeah, and so about you showing up and again just like showing up and you've engaged with my posts.
Yeah,
and like I noticed that, and again I do notice who pays attention and who shows up and who doesn't. And again, I'm not saying like, oh, if somebody doesn't engage with anything, I don't like you. No, it's not that. But at the same time, I pay attention to the people that pay attention to me. And so I mean, it's just
I feel the same way.
That's how you start. It's how you start a conversation, build a relationship. I mean, it's like it's simple. Well, like a simple comment, on Facebook, could start a friendship. It could start a business relationship, or something political. It's just
to me. Listening to your podcast and a couple of other like reading the newspaper, watching the news. To me, it's all kind of like consuming the media, especially in this area, where I want to hear what local voices have to say about things. So like I mentioned your show that you just had recently with Janelle Rushton, but you've had other great people on here who I really, really appreciate their opinions about things. Like you had Alan Stout on, who's our Tourism Bureau Director. He's really great. You had Amanda Fanek on recently. She's great. I've gotten to know her through the political world, but she does a lot of other good things. I loved all that social media conversation, AOL, AIM, that type of stuff. Yeah. I was like, oh, wow, this reminds me of like when I was I remember all that stuff. But you've had like a ton of great people on that like when I listen to them, I'm like, okay, this is giving me a little bit more insight as to what the thoughts are in Northeast Pennsylvania about certain issues going on. And I mean, really, that's why. I mean, if it wasn't,
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, it really is helpful to me because I know what people are talking about, especially people that
like you have your ear to the ground,
right? People had left this area and then come back. I'm always wondering.
Because I've had those people on too.
Right, exactly. Like, why did they come back? And like, so for example, we have, not related to your podcast, but in Pittston, they're not just in Pittston, but Drew and Stacy Long, they have the Drip Coffee shop. That's actually where I got my tea from earlier today. But they have the Drip Coffee shop. They have the one in Pittston. They have one in the Back Mountain area. And then they have Pour Coffee House in Wilkes-Barre. Well, they are originally from this area, or one of them is originally from this area. And then they moved away and they came back. They saw business opportunity here, and obviously they're flourishing. So like seeing something like that, I'm interested to hear what other people's experiences were outside of the area. So hearing it in a long form podcast where maybe I can't reach out to this person or hear it from them, I'm like, okay, well, this is interesting. This is an idea. This is why they moved back, or this is why they moved away and then moved back. Like it all kind of goes into my mind, and I kind of digest it a little bit while I'm doing other things, and then I kind of figure out what to do. But as it relates back to the long form, like podcasting, new media, I think that people like yearn for that stuff. They want to hear directly from the source exactly what's going on instead of this.
And in an unscripted format too. I also want to say that, by the way, because again, like, I mean, I think everybody.
None of this was scripted.
Right. Yeah. And again, it's funny, and in full transparency, even when, we were messaging, back and forth about you coming on, like I ask you like, hey, like, do you have any things that you'd like to maybe talk about? I'll try to incorporate, a little bit of what you want, and there's gonna be things that I'm gonna want to discuss, whatever. Yeah. But like you just said to me, like, man, like I'm an open book. Well, we could talk politics, we could talk firefighting. Like you were just like, man, like I'll just whatever you want, man. I'll just show up and I'll talk, and you just whatever you want. And I'm like, okay, cool, let's do it.
What did I say? That meme? It's like I'll talk with anybody about anything.
Yeah, that's right.
It was like
I told you we could talk about aliens.
Exactly. I'll talk about it all. I loved your show with Marky Denenbaum.
Oh yeah.
I ended up listening to his show after, because I actually didn't really know who he was. I've seen him before at like political events. Yeah. But I didn't really know who he was, and then I listened to his podcast with, I know this is a controversial figure, but Frank Scavo.
Sure, yeah.
And I actually
Frank, listened to that one too.
I've known Frank for a long time, and yeah, he's an interesting guy, like especially in the Republican Party. But he's somebody that I was like, I want to hear his side of the story on January 6th and what happened that day, like what he experienced, because you're only reading what you're seeing in the newspaper, and let me just hear what he has to say about it. And I thought, oh wow, I'm glad that I listened. And even if you don't like the guy, even if you don't agree with him, go take a listen to that podcast, because it was really interesting to hear what he had to say about that day.
For sure.
How it got organized,
and like you said, right from the source. Yeah,
and
not from the media.
And that's what people yearn for these days. They don't want to hear that, the gotcha, like you were saying before, the gotcha moments. They don't want that. They don't care about that, because they know I could screw up if I talk to somebody and say the wrong thing. Like I know I can, but they don't want to hear that, and they don't want to see somebody with a spliced clip from the news. Like there's this really famous clip from the 90s of George H.W. Bush, the first George Bush president, where he was talking about, they were at a grocery store, and he was talking about this like a checkout machine that the cashier was using. And they made it seem like he was an idiot because he was asking a question about it, but they spliced the clip. What he was asking was, what's the difference between this model of the checkout machine and the previous model that you had? And like, he knew what he was talking about, but they spliced it, so it made him look like a moron. And it's like,
and by the way, like that's very easy to do.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, and me doing what I do, I mean, it's I like, obviously, because you can cut videos and sound bites. Like you can just cut it, and easily piece things together in a way that may make you sound like you're saying the complete opposite of what you're saying. Sure. It's literally like it's that easy. I mean, and I think like maybe I think most people probably do realize that, but there's probably a lot of people that don't realize like actually how easy it is to just twist something like that.
And especially with AI nowadays.
Oh my God, forget it, dude.
You could recreate somebody's voice. You can recreate videos, and it's all over the place. I mean, you have to have a really keen eye to see that. I mean, if I was like an older person and didn't really understand AI, I would definitely get fooled by a lot of that stuff. And it's really scary. And that's how a lot of these like big scams are going on, with people getting scammed out of their credit cards. And you get a phone call about your I keep getting this phone call saying that I have back taxes for the last year. Like, that's not possible.
Oh my God, I love it.
It was very painful when I had to pay my my income tax. I owed money on my taxes the last 2 years in a row, and I'm like, I definitely remember writing that check out, because
like I paid up.
I definitely paid. Like there's no way there's still about. There's no way that's. But it's all like AI generated stuff, and it's scary because there are people that definitely will get scammed by that.
Oh, totally. There's a Turnpike one that gets gone out. You get the Turnpike, dude.
But the sad thing was, I actually did have unpaid tolls on the Turnpike, so I was like, oh, this might be accurate. So I didn't click on the link, but I was like, let me just go to the site and I'll just pay the tolls.
Legit where
so
I
ended up paying the tolls that day, but I was like, this is. I said it to somebody else, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that was a scam." I'm like, "Well, I kind of figured that, but that's why I didn't click on the link."
Because I just got, I think it was like within the last couple of weeks, I got like 2 or 3 of them. Obviously not on the same day, but over a few different days. And I mean, I knew it was a scam. I mean, I knew I didn't have any unpaid tolls.
But
at first, I did look at it. I mean, honestly, the first time it popped up on my phone, because actually I didn't know, like I'm pretty, I think, aware of like these types of like, there's these scams are going on all the time, like with everything. But like there was a split second, right, when I saw that text, and I might have been in the middle of something else, so it kind of maybe just caught me off guard. I'm like, wait, what does this say? And I questioned it for like a split second. Didn't click the link, of course, but I looked at it, I'm like, I'm like, wait a second. Thought to myself, like, when was the last time I was on the turnpike? I'm like, yeah, there's no chance.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, I know there wasn't after I really thought about it, but like, you know, it's very easy to be fooled with that stuff.
Definitely. Yeah.
Very.
They're relentless nowadays. They're very persistent about trying to steal money off.
It's crazy.
People. I feel bad because, like I said, it's very, very easy for someone to get scammed out of their money now with the way that, like I said, AI technology is.
Oh yeah.
And that's, again, like when you're someone like myself in politics, forget about my full-time job. Although I had one guy, this isn't related to AI, but I had one guy who he doesn't like me politically, no reason, just doesn't like me. And constantly is, you know, making these nasty comments about me on Facebook, and he photoshops pictures of me and has this picture of me from when I was 22 years old where I was holding a bottle of liquor, like with my buddies. I was just making a joke with them. He stole it from my Facebook page and he puts it on because I look like a dummy in the picture.
Sure,
it was just funny. It was just a funny picture. And he posts it all the time. But he said something. There was a guy that was doing a live Facebook feed of a big fire that we had in Pittston a few weeks ago, or back before Christmas time. And he made some comment saying like, "Oh, where's John Lombardo at? He must be hiding." And I'm like, that's like, to me, like at first I kind of laughed about it, but then I thought about it and I'm like, that's really actually extremely offensive. Like as a first responder, he's accusing me of being like dereliction of duty. Which is beyond, like, that's beyond just saying, hey, I don't like you because of your political beliefs or because you vote the way that I don't like.
Seriously,
that was a little
damaging.
That was a little more serious to me, and I really like, I just had to kind of like, I'm just letting it go. But like, you know, people, they do that type of stuff all the time. Yeah. It's crazy.
How do you deal with that, man? Because again, back to when I said earlier, when I said like, man, you just threw yourself to the wolves. Like, that is, you know, one of the things, obviously, when it comes to politics. And like I said, I give you a lot of credit, man, and anyone else, whether I agree with you as a politician or not. Like, I got to say, man, like, it takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of guts to really do that.
One of the things I always say to people is, I always give this example, and this has never happened verbatim, but it has very similar to this has happened, is I could be at work at 3 p.m. and we can get a call for like a baby not breathing. And we go to the house and the mother comes running out of the house with the baby in their arms and just thrust their lifeless baby. It's like their blood, thrust them into my arms, their flesh and blood, and says, save my child. And they trust you because of your uniform, because you come in the fire truck, because the lights and everything, just by the connotation of who you are in that moment. But then I put this suit on, I put this pin on, I sit down at my chair at a council meeting. That same woman could come to our council meeting, and when I say, hey, listen, we need to raise taxes this year by like $5, and she'll tell me that I'm corrupt, that I'm crooked, that I'm a horrible person, because she doesn't trust me with that extra $5 of her taxpayer money. But just 2 hours ago, she trusted me with her own flesh and blood. And I've had that happen, not exactly in that way, but I have had people that I've dealt with professionally in my career, and then they do the same thing when it comes to council or in my political life. And it's like just so jarring, because I'm the same exact person at 3 p.m. than I am at 6 p.m. In fact, I've told you several times during this show how I take a lot of the same things that I learn from being a first responder and I bring it into the political world, because it's obviously you're doing the same thing, you're doing public service, but it's just in a little more of a nuanced way. But it's like, sometimes I go to myself like, did I do something wrong? Am I really a bad person? Did I not put in enough work? Did I not?
Start questioning yourself.
But then I say to myself, you know what, John, you can't think like that. Again, same thing. Like, you can't pay attention to those few people that are seriously haters, and they're haters for no other reason than just to be haters. They don't care. They don't care about.
They're really not trying to actually contribute.
No, they're not. That's the thing. They can tell you everything that you're doing wrong, or they think you're doing wrong, but they won't tell you what the solution is to.
Nor will they probably. Well, I mean, you know, maybe some will tell you to your face, but there's a lot that also won't. There's a lot.
99% of them won't tell you to your face.
They hide behind the the social media comments. They hide behind the comments on articles on news websites, and it's like, first of all, like, you're not even using your real name. Like, use your real name and say that again.
You're being a little bit. You're being a bitch.
Yeah.
I
love it. I love it. Yeah.
I mean, if you're not gonna put your name out there, then seriously, don't put your name to a comment. Then don't put the comment.
Right.
Yeah. Because it's no value to me.
Right.
It really is not.
Yeah. And especially if you don't have the guts to actually put your real name behind it. Like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
Like, it's I'm sorry, but like, you can't you can't create a fake account, whether it's on social media or on these media websites where people comment and they all have fake names on there. It's like you can't use fake names and try to throw out opinions and criticize people.
Yeah.
While you're hiding behind that
happens
false.
too, not just in the political world. That we do have some of that in the first responder world too. There's this page. Not that I'm trying to advertise the page, but there's a page that actually like makes fun of firefighters a lot. I won't say what the name of the page is, but it's pretty well known in like in the first responder community.
Why the hell they make fun of firefighters?
It's like a volunteer firefighter versus paid firefighter type thing because there's like a supposed
like one's better than the other.
Yeah, there's like a
something,
rivalry between because like the volunteers say, oh, we're unpaid, but we still do the same job, and then the professional, it's not professional, but paid firefighters
the full time.
We're full time. We do this job all the time. This is our career,
Yep.
and you guys, do whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like this rivalry between those two, but they just post these like horrible things about people who are, a lot of times it's mostly like against volunteer firefighters. And it's really sad because 90% of the firefighters in Pennsylvania are actually volunteer, and across the country are volunteer.
And Jordan,
which is, he is. He's a volunteer.
He's a volunteer.
Exactly. Yep. So like, and they do. I know many of my closest and best colleagues in the fire department are actually volunteers. They're the most experienced. They're very passionate about the job. They just don't do it as a paid service.
Yeah.
And I get it. I understand that there's a little bit of a difference, but there really isn't.
Yeah.
We're all doing the same job.
Right.
And we're all just trying to make our community a little bit of a better place and make it safer and protect the residents. That's the job at the end of the day. And guess what? So I'm a paid firefighter. My Uncle John was a volunteer firefighter. He gave his life as a volunteer. And, I've certainly been to more fires than he has. I've certainly have, seen more things, emergency, EMS wise than he ever has, because he was only, I think, 25 when he passed away. But I still to myself say, I don't know if I could ever live up to that legacy of what he did. And I'm, like I said, I'm doing all this. I've been doing it for a longer time, but he was a volunteer. So to me, it's like those types of things don't help anybody. It doesn't make anybody learn.
Yeah.
It just gives people more cynicism, and I can't stand that.
Yeah, for sure. So, kind of, speaking, maybe along those lines, but not, but I'm just curious, like, what challenges do you see coming up? Like what, obviously, you're running for re-election, right?
Yeah. So I'm running for re-election this year. That's not really why I wanted to be on this show.
Right.
It just kind of we connected
not that way.
We connected in an unrelated way.
But and you did say like, hey, but I will talk about politics still if you want,
absolutely. Yeah, I was happy to be on, and so running for re-election is an interesting thing because you're busy now. Like I'm not only am I working my full-time job, plus I work part-time in another fire department. So I work about 80 hours a week between those two jobs. Then I work another, I don't know, maybe 20-ish doing council stuff. Maybe a little, it could be more depending on the week. And so now I have to find time to do campaign stuff on top of that. And I don't want to take my foot off the gas and just say, oh, I'm an elected official, so my name's already out there. I'm gonna I'll
take it for granted.
I'm not going to do that, because if you take it for granted, there's a possibility that you could end up losing. So I have to now find time to do campaigning, and actually that's the stuff I really enjoy. That's what I've done 90% of my political career outside of this stint as an elected official. I've worked on many campaigns. I've knocked on, gosh, I don't know, probably 100,000 doors of people. Actually, it's funny. Right here in this neighborhood, I've knocked on doors many times here. Just last year, I was out for.
You didn't knock on this one?
Well,
what the hell, man?
Business. This is a business. So I get, they get really. Sometimes they get mad at you when you knock on their door to begin with. So you go to a business, they'll really get mad at you. But
definitely.
Next time,
they get mad at you no matter what.
Next time I'm here, I will knock on your door. But it was funny. Like I was just driving down the street to get here, and I was like, oh, I remember this lady's house with all the Elvis stuff outside of it. That it's just like
brings back the memories,
right? But we're here in this neighborhood in particular, quite frequently for certain elections. But like I love that stuff. I love being able to talk to the voters. Now, there's obviously a certain way that you have to do it. You have to be kind of quick because it's about numbers. It's more about quantity, not really necessarily quality when it comes to voter contact. But that's going to be a big thing. We have other issues in the county on the horizon that we're working on. Obviously, as we get closer to the middle and the end of the year, it'll be budget time, and that's a very serious time for us. We have to look at where we can allocate more money. Obviously, hopefully not whether we have to raise taxes or not, but do things like that. We have to look at those types of things. And right now, we have some things going on where the federal government obviously is cutting some of the programs that are coming down to the states and whatever. So some of those funding sources, I don't want to say that they're not coming to us, but maybe the same opportunities won't be there. So we have to adjust for some of that. And then the other thing that we have, which I had mentioned very briefly before, is so we have another government study commission that we formed. So our home rule charter is a pretty good document, like 85% of it works really well. But there's a couple things in it that conflict with state law and federal law, and we really want to change those. Some of the issues that we have involve the way our elections are run. So I'm sure that some people have seen, probably not some, a lot of people have seen in the news that we do have problems with our elections, and that's not something that's unique to Luzerne County. That's one thing I definitely want to make clear as I say that. But the problem is our county, because we're a bellwether county in the state, and we have this big political shift that's been going on. People are paying attention to Luzerne County nationwide.
Yeah.
So when something goes wrong here, it's like the echo is a lot more than just from this room. It goes all throughout the country. So people know Luzerne County, unfortunately, but it's not because Luzerne County is the only one that's screwed up.
Yeah, it's not because we're the problem child.
It's not because that. It's just because we are uniquely politically situated. So other counties are having a lot of issues, especially as it relates to our state government and how they administer the elections. They have different laws that are conflict with other stuff, and it makes it difficult. But anyway, our government study commission is studying some of that. They're also talking about potentially lowering the size of county council. I said that there's 11 people on council right now, and a lot of people have told me, and I kind of tend to agree with this, that 11 people is too many on council. There's 11 different opinions. It's kind of like herding cats. I always say that. It's like herding cats trying to get people to vote for things. So I think if we lower the number down to maybe like 7, I think that would be a more workable number. And it wouldn't give people much less representation or anything like that. It just gives you an opportunity to maybe get to know your candidates a little bit better. So the Government Study Commission is working on that. That'll be on the ballot, I believe, in November. So you'll have an opportunity to potentially vote on a new charter, or you can, vote no, and we can remain the way we are. The only problem is we may run into these problems again that we have. So those are a couple things that are on the horizon for us now. But for me personally, I'm just, I'm like going with the flow. It's like I said earlier, it's just whatever happens is what happens. I'm happy to just keep doing what I'm doing, and if something happens to not work out, if something doesn't work out with this election, or if something doesn't work out in the world of the first responder world for me, I'm fairly happy doing what I'm doing, but I am always waiting for another opportunity to come. I'm not saying that I'd if there was another political opportunity, I would say no or whatever. Like I do definitely see myself.
You do have more aspirations.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I have more aspirations than to just necessarily do this. But I'm happy to continue to do it. And if this is the last thing that I get to do politically,
you'll be cool with that.
And if this is the last thing I get to do professionally as a first responder, I'm fine with that. I think that's. I really have kind of, like I said, I've tried to give myself a little bit of a different perspective on things over the last few years, and that is by far the biggest. Is just kind of going with the flow. Everything happens for a reason. See where things take me, and if it's in the plan, it's in the plan, and if it's not, then hey, whatever. Just be happy with what you have.
Yeah. What about the opioid epidemic? Isn't that something that's important to you? That you've been passionate
absolutely.
about?
I'm glad you brought that up. So I sit on the opioid commission, which the county formed because we received. We'll receive. I want to say it's like $26 or $27 million over the coming next decade or two to fight the epidemic here in Luzerne County. We had it's not the same anymore, but a couple years ago we had the second or third highest opioid overdose rate in the entire state.
That's wild.
And so the reason why the opioid epidemic came to be, and I'm not sure if you ever watched the Netflix documentary about OxyContin, but it had a lot to do with that, about overprescribing of these narcotic painkillers, and it turned people into, basically turned them into drug addicts where they were no longer just looking for the painkillers. They couldn't get them anymore, so they started going to heroin, and now because fentanyl is like the big thing, and it's been mainly coming over the southern border. It's coming from several places, but it's partly coming from China, and it's partly coming from like the South American countries. So it's been getting its way up to here, and it's just running havoc on this whole country and on all of our people.
I think this is something that everybody can agree on.
Yeah. So we have, like I said, this commission that we formed, and we're allocating dollars to different programs, both internally in the county and through other like nonprofit organizations that are doing like treatment facilities, prevention, maybe not necessarily 100% like the DARE program was when we were kids, but kind of similar to that. So, mainly like my big focus on it is prevention, because I don't want to have to be the person that is on the street in the ambulance or in the fire truck.
That's right, because you
having
are.
to revive people,
Yeah.
because the amount of people that we've had to do that for is just astronomical. And it's like,
That's right. I mean, for a split second there, I almost forgot. Like,
yeah.
I'm
So that's what-
'cause here I'm in a moment. I'm like, I'm talking to a political version,
politician,
but
John,
but
not
but then
EMT John.
yeah,
right.
but then also there's EMT John who you've seen it firsthand.
Yeah.
and you could see the impact that it's having.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every for a while there, especially right before the pandemic and during it, it was like every day we were going on overdose calls, and that was that was at the time when it was at its peak. So now that we've started to get a handle on it, we have a little bit more prevention. Now one of the things that I'm really happy about, like President Trump being back in office, is obviously he's really cracking down on the flow of fentanyl from the southern border.
Yeah, and every time he says that, like, he gets criticized for that. Like, it's like, it's not coming from there. Like,
I think it's so silly, because that is where most of it is coming from, and it's so unfortunate that has to be such a political issue for us. Like, why can't we all just get together and say, hey, I don't want 300,000 Americans to die.
Yeah, it's killing people
because of stuff that's coming over from somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, it's not
like,
about,
why argue about that?
It's not about whether you like or don't like the people on the other side of that border. It's about the fact that you don't
happening.
like
Yeah.
the people that are bringing that stuff here that's killing our people.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's happening. Like, it's just,
happening. It's just like, we have to stop it somehow. So, like, can we just, like, cut the political nonsense and just do the right thing for everybody? So that's why I'm happy that, like, we have these funds that are coming in. We're able to actually utilize them for some good things. But like I said, in my full-time job, in my professional life, especially when I was an EMT prior to being a full-time firefighter, we saw that so much, and it just, like, again, it takes a toll on you. Like, I know, like, I'll drive by the houses and remember, like, even not on my street, but the street across from me, I'm like, oh, I remember when I was in that house for a person that overdosed. Oh, I remember when I was in this house for a person that overdosed. And I'm like, that's a lot of people, a lot of houses.
Yeah, to name more than just a couple, that's a little scary.
It is. It definitely is something that
hits home.
That I'm glad that I'm able to effectuate some change on the political level, which is why I love doing both of what I do, because on the first responder level, you get to see the difference that you make instantaneously. Like I said, like the lifting of the smoke, or like when you like you're saving grandma that's having a heart attack. Like, you get to see that, like when you're doing CPR on her and they're giving medicine and everything, and all of a sudden you see on the heart monitor, you just see the little blip, and then her heart starts beating again, and it's like the best feeling in the world. It's instantaneous. But in politics, sometimes that little blip on the screen takes a while.
Yeah.
It takes a couple weeks, couple months, maybe even a couple years. And I think that's something that people have to remember, that things don't get done overnight when it comes to politics. That they really, really need to kind of calm down and just say, okay, our people are working on this. Like, one thing that has been a perennial issue for me since I've been on council is I mentioned this before, but our roads in Luzerne County. That was something that was just previously neglected before I was on council and before some of my colleagues were.
And everybody's got something to say about the potholes, by the way.
Exactly. They don't realize that, okay, so 120 miles of the roads are county roads, but the other however many thousand miles of the roads are not county roads.
Yeah.
But they're all pretty much in the same shape. So it's not like we're doing something worse than other people. It's that we live in just a bad area with the climate. The freeze and thaw cycle really causes a lot of problems for our
really
roads.
busts up the roads.
Yeah. So we've been trying really hard to focus on that, because that's something that people see every day. Like, I always tell people, the local politics isn't about who's going to fund the schools or gun control or whatever. It's about making sure that your kid has a school book every day to bring home so that they can study, or fixing that pothole that you hit every morning on your way to work. That's what local politics is, and that's where the rubber really meets the road, and that's what really affects people.
Yeah, it'd be kind of funny is I think like Luzerne County needs its own version of like WNAP's Talk Back 16, right? So imagine for a second. I'm sure you.
We do have that, actually.
You do?
At our not really,
okay.
but our county council meetings.
Okay, yeah.
Much. You get
essentially is that.
Yeah, have that.
Yeah, but I feel like you guys need, like, it could be its own, like, little mini podcast series or something. It could be like I said, like Luzerne County's version of WNP's Talk Back 16.
That would be interesting.
And I mean, there will never be a dull moment.
Yep.
No matter what's going on, whether things are good or things are bad. But I think it'd be hilarious.
Oh my God.
But I mean, you might also
crazy.
obviously probably get some good genuine feedback too. But But again, even doing things like this, I hope you get some feedback, good feedback. I know you'll probably get some bad feedback too, but it's just par for the course, and it's the way it goes. Hopefully nobody photoshops anything too crazy of you. But if they don't, I'll make sure I do it for you.
Well, if they do, make sure you have the watermark on, so at least you get some credit.
Right?
For the picture being partially from you.
Right? Yeah. Or if if at some point somebody sends out a piece of direct mail and they use a little thing here from you, hopefully they give me the right credit for it.
Right.
But, yeah. So, I mean, I guess maybe to kind of maybe wrap up, like, is there any, again, just in general for people in Luzerne County, like, is there anything that like they should know? Like, again, like, just think for a second, like, let's really dumb it down. Like, is there anything that like you want people to know? Again, obviously, the elections come up, and that obviously that's important. But like, just in terms of good things, bad things, like what should the people really know?
So Luzerne County offers a lot of services to our residents. That's one of the most important things I think that people should know, is that there are a lot of things that you can check out if you go to our website, luzernecounty.org, and you can find out some of the things that you can do, some of the ways that you can be affected positively by a lot of the things that we've done. Like, especially when it comes to, like I said before, I mentioned the ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan funds. We really created a lot of programs that are helping residents of Luzerne County, especially those that are on trying times right now that have been since COVID. So a lot of those programs still exist. Now that we have the opioid funding, we're in the process of getting a lot of those programs started. But other than that, we do a lot of other really great things in the county that just go check out our website, and you'll get to see some of those things that we do. I mean, I know that I mentioned Alan Stout before, but he runs the Tourism Bureau, and they have a lot of great advertising for some of the things you can do in Luzerne County, because there's no shortage of great things to do.
Yeah, there's a lot.
The county. I'm all over the place all the time, and between eating at the restaurants, going on the trails, and just being outside. I mean, there's so much to do here. There really is. And it's really exciting because I've been saying this, and this is part of one of my other political, like, canned things, but we're at the precipice of like a renaissance in the county, where I think, like, in Pittston, they're at the renaissance, but Luzerne County itself, we're just about there. We're working on it. We've got people that are interested in coming here. We were just ranked as one of the top 20 or top 10 best places for economic development in the entire country.
I saw that. Did you share something, or maybe somebody else did?
I might have shared it. Yeah,
I saw it somewhere.
I'm so proud of that. Every year when we get
I can't say I read it, but I saw the blip.
I'm so proud of that, to know that we've been doing those types of things, and we're finally getting some recognition for us, because it's not that they're just coming here to build warehouses anymore. I mean, we're uniquely situated because we have Interstate 80 and 81 that cross over. Yeah. So that makes
for a good fit. Yeah.
Well, that's actually thanks to previous politicians, and this came from a Democrat, actually, but Congressman Dan Flood had a lot to do with that back in the 1960s and 70s. He was a big proponent of getting that corridor there. So kudos to him, and he's a Democrat. So but it's not just about warehouses anymore. There are companies that are looking at us for more administrative work, for more technical work, and those aren't just, like I said, they're not just these remedial jobs, and even the warehouse jobs are actually not. They're paying pretty well these days. So we have a lot of development coming to Luzerne County, and especially there's certain hotbeds. And again, every municipality can have the same opportunities that the ones that are being very successful do. Luzerne County wants to work with all of them. I personally want to work with every single one of them. They can certainly email me, they can call me, they can send me a carrier pigeon. I don't care. Get in touch with me. I want to work together. I think everybody on our council wants to work together. Our administration wants to do good things for every municipality, and we just got to communicate. That's the bottom line. That's
right back to what you said in the beginning.
Exactly. Right at the beginning is communication is the most important thing, because if we don't, then we don't know what you want. You don't know what we need. You don't know what we have. And that's why I said before, like, to any regular people listening, just go to our website and check out what's going on here. We have a lot of great things. And then again, for people that are involved in local government or any other, even nonprofits, just check us out. I mean, we can definitely help with a lot of things, and we certainly would love to be able to be helped with some things too. We need to collaborate on a lot of these projects, because it's not getting easier out there as far as like funding and stuff is concerned. It's getting a lot harder.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So,
and I think too, kind of back along the line, sort of what you just said, but it reminded me, I had it was a little while back. It was episode 175, and his name is he was General John Gronsky, and he's a major general. He's a 2-star retired, by the way, 2-star Army general, but he's from this area. And I got introduced by another former guest here, but I had no idea that a 2-star Army general came from the Scranton area.
Yep.
I think not a lot of people know that. He was over in Iraq and Afghanistan, during some of the bloodiest times, and but one of the things that he said, and again, at the time that he was there, he led anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 soldiers and Marines in Iraq, and it was 2005, 2006, by the way. I just want to make sure I get that right. But I asked him, I said, like, how were you able to, as a leader, right? How are you able to? I forget the exact question, but it was something like, how are you able to lead successfully that many people? Because he was very proud, of minimizing, I'll say, the losses of everyone alongside him, and he said something like, it's not about getting to know every one of them, because that's impossible. Mm-hmm. Like getting to know the 10,000 people. It's impossible. There's just not enough time a day. It just can't happen, right? Yeah. And he goes, it's not about getting to know them. It's about them getting to know me. And again, like this, I'll say this right now, like these types of conversations, back to what I said about the whole thing about politicians, getting involved, in being I'm sure any politician would hop on any podcast at any point. I doubt any would really turn it down. I mean, for the most part,
some
right?
Might, you never know.
Some might, especially if the host may have some very strong political views. The other way, they may opt to not come on the show. I get that to a degree, but at the same time, like I said, going back to General Gronsky's, outlook on it is again, like, there's only so much time, you have in the day, me and everybody else. And it's not about, you're never going to be able to go around and knock on, 10,000 doors and really be able to get to really know all those people. Yep. But if you can find a way, and this is a helpful tip for really anyone, this can apply to anything. This isn't just, obviously about politics, but, anyone that's, looking to lead and again, it's just about getting the people to know you. And how do you do that? Well, I mean, I think podcasting is obviously a very, very easy way to do that. Exactly. As we said before, I won't repeat all the stuff we said before, but I appreciate you coming on, man.
Absolutely.
And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate what you do. And
good experience.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you. And I hope people got some great information from you. I mean, I know I did. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you talked about. Not that I didn't know, but again, it's some of those issues and some of those things that you only hear about the surface level little thing in the newspaper, or as I said before, or a 10-second, somebody might have interviewed you on TV and they talked to you for 5 minutes, but they only put the 10 seconds and the 10 words that you said. And it's like, exactly, that's just not enough, and I know nobody has the time, we probably we're into this probably like an hour and a half, and I understand like somebody may not sit through this for the whole hour and a half straight, but like, you could break it up, and as with any other show, like same thing, again, we talked about like Rogan's are so freaking long. I don't have the time to listen out either, but like, I catch 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there, and but I just think it's important. I think it's important, for people to again, just to get to know you, and I think it's actually easier, and as you said, like just have the conversations.
It makes it more helpful when I have to do my job.
Yeah,
not necessarily my job in the fire service or in emergency services, but my job politically on county council. It makes it a lot easier when people actually get to know me. When instead of they just, like you said, see that 10-second clip or see
and
that
they just make an assumption. That's it.
They make an assumption or see that nasty post on Facebook. Like, you actually get to know the person.
Yeah.
So because I'm certainly more than those things, and I think most people are. So that's why I was happy to do this, and I'd love to I'd love to have conversations with anybody. I mean, it's so much more helpful than not doing so, because you're breaking down a lot of barriers. And that's, again, like I said this to you before, but that's why I really appreciate your show, having a lot of local guests on here. It makes it easy for me to gain a little bit more knowledge about what they're thinking.
Absolutely. Well, all right. John Lombardo, this is the On the Stacks podcast and Loop Internet Studio. Thanks for joining me.
If you want to see more On the Stacks content, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/On the Stacks podcast, or search the hashtag On the Stacks on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.